Welcome, everyone. I'm delighted you're able to join us here today. What I think will be a lively discussion on a very important topic. And also delighted to welcome our panel. We have a super interesting panel here, ranging from insurers to reinsurers to startups as well. So the topic that we're going to cover today is quite broad. How can insurers transform customer experience and engage with customers to create trust and long-term loyalty? Before I go into the intros, let me just talk about a few basic logistics first. Any questions can be submitted in the Q&A box. You'll see two boxes at the bottom of your screen. So please submit your questions in the Q&A box that you see at the bottom. Having said that, let's get into introductions. So briefly from me, Preetham Peddanagari. I lead our insurance technology business in EMEIA for EY, and my passion and focus is applying technology to change business models and improve experience for consumers. I will hand over to Désirée. Do you want to do a quick intro?
Yes, thank you. So nice to meet you, everyone. Happy that everyone is here. Can you hear me good? Is everything fine? So my name is Désirée Mettraux, and I'm CEO of OCC. OCC is the market leader in Switzerland, Germany, and Austria for the insurance for classic cars. We are MGA, and we are established over 37 years ago, and I'm passionate about digital insurance models, and I'm happy to join the webinar today. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen?
Hi, everybody. My name's Stephen. I'm glad to be with you today. I'm the Group Chief Digital and Innovation Officer for Generali. I don't think we need to introduce Generali. Global organization, particularly retail focused. And we are striving to become the lifetime partners for our customers, which is a quite difficult feat, but we're making good progress, and we'll hear more about it, I'm sure, during the conversation later today. Delighted to be with you all. Thank you.
Giuseppe?
Hi, everyone. Giuseppe or Beppe, delighted to be here. I work for Swiss Re. I'm a key account manager. I'm in charge globally for the business we call Life and Health Solutions for the largest accounts, so big multinationals like Generali, for example. Before that, I spent a few years in primary insurance life, Zurich, and before that, McKinsey and consumer goods. And I'm happy to be here today and to bring a couple of specific angles around life and health, particularly, and partnerships. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Peter?
Hi, I'm Peter Davis. I head up the customer and distribution team for Zurich in the UK. So that's principally working with corporate customers from every size, from small companies right the way through to major multinationals, and also distribution partners. So working with brokers, MGAs, captives, and I'm, what I think we can already hear from the panel is we've got a huge variety of different conversations that we can get into in the way that the industry interconnects and the way that digital plays through. So looking forward to today's conversation.
Thanks, Peter. So let's start the discussion. And just to remind the audience, please do type your questions in the Q&A box. Having done a few of these, I think it's hard to not kick off the discussion on something COVID related, given the nature of how we're doing this event. So, if I step back, I think the pandemic, I think one of the things that it highlighted is it spoke to the very purpose of insurance in terms of, protecting businesses, protecting families. And one of the real challenges, in my view, the pandemic highlighted, I think, is the need to provide truly customer-centric products and solutions. So my question to you is quite broad deliberately to start the discussion. Are insurance solutions in tune with the new customer needs? And when products are being developed, do you think enough customer-centric thinking is being taken into account? I will, maybe Stephen, you can kick us off and we'll go on.
Okay, so again, quite a broad question. I think the answer to that is I think we're working on it. I think we have inherently an insurance sector in the past has been very internally focused, very underwriting focused, and rightly so, but that's been changing over the last 10 years. And I think it's probably true to say that the pandemic has accelerated some of that change as well. So what we found is that our customers have needed reassurance. They've needed more products and services from us as a provider, and we have to be there when they need us to be there. So I think, in short, we are work in progress. We are working hard at it. We've introduced specific programs to do more of that and to put the customer at the heart of our proposition development. And we'll talk about it, I'm sure, throughout the hour we have together. But I don't think we're at the end point yet, particularly compared to other industries that had a head start in the beginning.
Thanks, Stephen. Giuseppe, I know you have a sort of a protection life background, so perhaps your view on that as well.
Yeah, so I would concur with Stephen. It's work in progress, and guys, let's be honest about it. This is an insurance. The insurance is an industry which is not very customer centric. It is an industry where, you know, traditionally the focus and the balance between shareholder value creation and customer value creation, financially and non-financially, is more on this side. I think the pendulum now is slowly getting here, right? Slowly, not quite there yet. So if I compare, you know, my old days in consumer goods, definitely the pendulum is here, right? COVID definitely has been an accelerator of change. So I can give you a couple of anecdotal evidence. Just speaking with clients, I have to say, I do remember one big client telling me, you know, because of COVID now, we have the opportunity, and he used the word opportunity, to start piloting things that, you know, 3, 6, 9 months ago, we wouldn't ever thought to be possible, because they would have, you know, met some internal hurdles from what I would call the old boys school. But I agree, we're not quite there yet. I also think that, so there is I can say BCAC, before COVID, after COVID. We're transitioning slowly into the after COVID, and there will be some, I would expect some of the shifts after COVID that will persist. And, you know, things like, you know, being digital will be like an hygiene factor, I think, number one. Number two, the shift, the channel shift, right, on the new business. Number three, the awareness from consumer to, I mean, own awareness about own protection need, right? And therefore more, you know, proactive in asking for specific, you know, products and services and riders. And I think fundamentally the industry per se doesn't have all the capabilities in-house to fulfill those needs and those transformations. What I see happening is that most often the transformation is needs some help from outside in the form of, you know, tripartite partnerships. But I can elaborate a bit more on that later.
Thanks, Giuseppe. Peter, perhaps you want to add a sort of a commercial perspective as well, given the recent recent sort of news and stuff.
And Preetham, I was thinking about your question as I was listening to Beppe and Stephen talking. Look, I think we can always do more. You know, wherever you are on that balance that Beppe was talking about, and I think there are probably differences in different product lines, in different customer segments. I think the topic is here. It's now. I mean, we're talking about it today, but I think if you only have to look around any number of participants, small, large, the number of entrants coming into the market, I think customer is now very much at the heart of the conversation. What we now all need to do is make sure that we actually drive that into delivering something that's different. But what I was also reflecting on is I think, you know, we sometimes perhaps get a little blinded by what the media and the press show us and what we hear and read sometimes. And I suppose I'd just call out that, yes, there's been some challenges that I think COVID has exposed and really brought into the limelight. But let's not also forget that the industry, you know, there's some great success stories, and certainly in the life insurance arena, there's actually been some real evidence of where I think insurance serves a really important need in our communities and in industry.
Great, thank you. Désirée, your view, and we'll go to the next question.
I think it's like in that moment. So after and with COVID, it's like customer centricity is more important than ever. And as we see in a field, in a niche field of classic cars, it's an old niche field. It's also like a traditional business. We have done the switch all over to digitally, because there was no other ways. And we see also these clients, they get through it, and now they are like it's a habit. And we have to do with this with every niche and every branch of the insurance factory, that you have to go through it. And I think that will be the key, and there will no other way, because also everyone, the whole society had to do things online, do focus on stuff like that, because there was no other possibility. And they see in lifetime or consumer goods that it works. So it also has to work for insurance.
No, I agree. Thanks, everyone. So it moves us on to the next question. Again, probably slightly broader as well. Now, I think we all know and accept that actually customer experience and transforming organizations around that is much more than either putting a compelling front end, or much more than digitizing one or two process, right? It's a sort of kind of front to back transformation. Yet experience suggests that actually success varies. In fact, if anything, there's probably more failures than kind of successful, if you like. And failure might be a strong term, but at least programs that are not achieving the desired benefits. And I'm interested in hearing your perspectives around why that is. I mean, I'll share you my personal view. I think the main reason is why we're seeing some of these initiatives not deliver their expected benefits. It's actually, whilst the topic is simple, I think actually understanding what customers value is not an easy task. And then driving that into a set of operational improvements requires again, is not an easy thing, and requires set of capabilities around insights, analytics, some of which are technology constraints, I'll grant, some of which I think are capability constraints. But that's my personal view. But again, keen to kind of hear your perspectives. Maybe start with Peter, given sort of Zurich size and scale. I'm sure you would have come across some interesting challenges there.
I think I could probably talk on this topic for an hour, and we'd have to push everybody else to one side. But I'll try and keep it to a shorter response. So I think first of all, I'd say we shouldn't be afraid of trying and failing. I think that the fear of trying things will always hold people back if you're not careful. So I think that sort of try fast, fail fast approach is something we shouldn't be shy of, and of course, particularly some of the newcomers to the industry are certainly bringing that angle. I think there's a real need, and particularly in a large organization, such as Zurich, is we have to really drive the customer tone from the top. You need really clear leadership. Why are we doing this? What are we trying to achieve, and how are we going to achieve it? Because there's monumental change that's needed for some things. IT and systems, I think, across the industry is something that traditionally has not perhaps seen the investment that's always needed. So clearly that need for some top-down drive. But equally at the same time, we need all of our people really participating in this change process. And I'm not sure that from a knowledge and a talent perspective, the insurance industry has always led on the front foot with bringing some of that talent in. And I don't know if we'll get into that talent conversation perhaps a little bit more deeply later.
Thanks, Peter. Stephen, similar again. I'm sure I know you've been at Generali now for 2 or 3 years, so interested in your perspectives.
Yeah, look, I think it's pretty similar to what Peter mentioned. I think one of the things that we tend to underestimate is the cultural change and the degree of that's required for the ultimate customer centricity and transformation to work. So you can start changing the technology all you like. You can change the widgets and you can change the platform, but if you don't change how we work as individuals and as a team and how we think of our customers, I think that's the bit that takes the longest. So I think that's why you mentioned sometimes transformation programs don't succeed, because actually they're measuring probably the wrong thing. And they're measuring, have we delivered the tech? Well, maybe, and even that's 50-50 sometimes. But have we delivered the change, the ultimate change to the customer? That requires a lot more than just the tech. It requires the whole value chain to be altered. And I think it goes back to Peter's point around what kind of people do we have in the organization? What are the traditions that we need to turn upside down and gradually change how we behave as businesses? And I think that just takes time. And it does need strong leadership, but we know that businesses generally have a 3-year cycle in terms of their view, and we need to be looking 10 to 15 years in terms of how we change this radically. And I'm glad to say that at Generali, certainly, and I think in other companies as well, we are starting to see that shift, particularly because it's now being forced upon us by other companies outside. So the likes of Désirée's organizations and others that are coming in are forcing us to reevaluate that and do it a different way and to try and accelerate that too. So I think there is hope. We're just on our way and we need to make a lot more progress.
Maybe, sorry, go on.
And I think it's also like if it's also a state of mind from the board side. I mean, you have a lot of old companies, big companies. If the board doesn't have this digital leadership mindset, then the whole organization will fail, because technology, as also the other said, you can buy, but the shift you will also only make with your mindset. It's a leadership thing, it's a change thing. And everyone has to understand in the whole organization that the need is there for customer centricity. And I often, if I talk also with insurance companies or big insurance companies, that mindset is not there. They always think about their own inside view and not the outside view. And I think this switch, it will the duration will go on for years.
Because related sort of point to that, then maybe Giuseppe, I'll ask you this question: is one of the challenges I'm finding when sort of talking to clients around, again, this concept of measurement of success that Stephen alluded to. Do you measure by very kind of traditional metrics? Because most clients now want results, within weeks and months, if you like, because you're sort of comparing against a different set of competitors, much faster kind of payback, no longer kind of 2-3 year cycles, if you like. Again, sort of keen to sort of get your perspectives around actually measuring success. Does that need to change as well, move away from some of the traditional success metrics we've all been used to?
Yeah. So look, I think it does. Let me add. So yes, I think it does, and you would see that if I think about the largest global insurers of the last, let's say, 5 to 6 years, in the rate card of the GC of the board, you will see a number of new operational KPIs popping up. So 5 years back, it was all about deliver the income, operating profit, you name it the way you want. Deliver to me the total shareholder return compared against the others, against the benchmarks, and the capital strength and liquidity, right? And now on top of these, we see NPS, for example, and most importantly, employee engagement score. And the two things are pretty much intertwined, right? When we talk about transformation 6. So I think we're getting there. So let me add one perspective on the why. I think the fundamental thing, so one of the fundamental reasons why transformation of the last decades hasn't made a big progress to date is because despite, take life and health insurance industry, despite, an entire decade, even longer now, of low, nearly zero, Germany negative interest rates, still the industry delivers, profit, dividends, right? More or less, they deliver. Think about COVID. COVID, at the end of the day, was an earnings event. We got 500,000 people dead in the US, but I tell you, the industry hasn't been so much impacted, because the reality is that vast majority of those are not part of the insured population pool. So that's a lot. I think there is a bit of so what I see is that in the big insurer over the last few years, we get at the board level new profiles coming in, the group chief customer office, innovation office, and so on and so forth. There is an increasing appetite for hiring those people from a different talent pool. So my former employer hired a lady coming from Loco, which is consumer goods industry, completely different from insurance. Still, I don't think that's enough, because the reality is that within the machine within the organization, the machine, the super tanker, still there is a lot of old boys school. Transformation happens in markets. You can have a board centrally dictating you got to do this, this, and that, but the reality is one needs to find in one of two pilot markets the right combination, the right people, deliver that, and then instill into the other markets the peer pressure to deliver. And that's why it takes a lot of time.
Yeah, I agree. And you can't have a agile business that's being command and control. So I think it's the right balance. Yeah. So thank you, Giuseppe. We have a question coming in, which is specifically about pension funds. And so the question is, what timescale can technology democratize pension funds and investments for the customer? So for example, use of ESG, that can be made quickly and easily. So I guess the broader point around actually, how do you cut through some of the grit in the pipe that we know exists in the pensions industry, and what sort of time scale do we see technology maybe impacting at the same level as retail? Let's say I'm reading between the lines here. So Giuseppe, maybe you given kind of your background to kick us off on that.
Well, look, I think it's a super broad question, because pension fund. What I mean, first of all, it changes by market by market. So pension fund in the UK is very different from Switzerland. Second is second pillar, third pillar, corporate. Or I think there is a certain degree of technology coming in this industry, right? To fundamentally cut costs, right? Because the pension fund, in a 10 years almost nearly zero interest rate environment, it's you have to become more efficient. I would say again, it changes on a market by market. In terms of visibility and focus, I see now more when it comes to tech. I would see perhaps a bit more focus on the retail side than on the pension fund. But probably is a question to be posed to the largest investment management providers. So if you think BlackRock is 7 trillion AUM, and they have Aladdin, they do cool stuff there, I would say.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the lines are now completely blurred in terms of what used to be sort of traditional pension funds, wealth managers, retail, and we're seeing a lot of disruption in that space, right? I can't answer the question exact timeline, but what we do know is once, if you take the example of retail, once you have a successful model that's been tried out, it's quite easy to catch on, and there are lots of examples of wealth managers using different business models, partnering with kind of fintechs, wealth techs too. So I think sort of kind of watch this space, I suppose. We have a question sort of relating to partly culture, but partly about sort of strategy as well. So the question is, insurance companies traditionally have been, and I'm sure this is not the case for everyone, but, kind of build everything by yourself, whether it's IT, whether it's sort of products. Are they leveraging the ecosystem well enough when it comes to transforming customer experience? So that could be in terms of partnering with insurtechs, we've already spoken about external talent. So the broader question is around actually, are all the avenues for partnering being considered when looking at transforming customer experience? Peter, maybe you can kick us off, and we'll go around the table.
I think the straight answer to that is no. I think historically it's not necessarily been a partnership-based approach, but I think that is definitely starting to change now. And I think there's a realization that sticking to your core competencies and doing what you know how to do and doing that very well already delivers for your customers. And I think from a Zurich perspective, that's where we want to absolutely excel is the service that we know we can already deliver in terms of the interface to our customers. But we are certainly, I think, like many others in the industry now, starting to take a much broader approach. And I think you get a sense, I don't know what the rest of the panel think, but I think you get a sense of a slightly more collaborative approach that's starting to come through now. And there are just, there's so many areas that individuals and companies can work on. I mean, just this morning we announced, for example, an initiative where we're working with one of the large electric vehicle subscription fleet providers. In fact, so there's actually two providers we're going to be working with, because it's also working with greater than, and really that's looking into the diagnostic approach and the behavior around electric vehicle fleets. We are learning as quickly as everybody else is learning about electric vehicles. So I think there's a growing understanding that actually we have to work together. I don't think it's an option.
Yeah, and I think, Peter, it's fair to say, compared to a few years back, where everything was about insurtech disrupting insurance, I think we're much more now in a partnering and working collaboratively to find a win-win solutions.
I think the other thing that's starting to change, and I think you see it probably more in the retail space at the moment, in the consumer lines, I think it's building up into some of the larger corporate space, is insurance. What people were effectively buying was the risk transfer. What's shifting now is the service and everything else that goes around that. So it's not just about transferring your risk to a risk taker. I think, as much as we are changing, we're also adapting to consumers and companies who want to purchase something slightly different. But I think that's also where we're all struggling a little bit, because none of us I don't think consumers and corporates can always articulate what they're looking for. And therefore, we've got to continue on that journey to work out what that looks like.
Yeah. Désirée, I'm sure you have a perspective on this.
Yes, I have. So, I mean, there is not the right way. So you also have to find out as own organization with your own products, with your own model, with your own sense of vision, what's the best thing to get at this point to transform your whole company and transform your habits and your model and also your sense for customer centricity. And then think there are no no's here. Everything you can do, everything, learn, build, measure. It's always like this, and always have the focus on your customers and on your customer needs. And I'm really a fan and really deep into the whole platform economics, and I'm also I think it's better to go with the ecosystem than do it by build everything by your own, because everyone. There are always an organization or a person that already have solved your problem. So if you go together, you can make it better and get it better.
Great, thank you. Stephen, do you want to share your perspective?
Yeah, I think I've been around for too long to know that insurance companies doing it all themselves is a recipe for failure. So whether that's the technology or whether that's the proposition. So we're working very hard now to link into whether you call it the ecosystem, whether you call it external providers or insurtechs, people who have expertise and excellence in either ways of working that are different and faster than the way that we traditionally work, or that have something interesting technologically, or that have a great proposition for customers and an insight or an angle that we don't have. And so we're really pushing quite hard on that, because we recognize there's a huge amount of value to get in that ecosystem. The challenge is picking the ones that we think are going to make the difference versus the ones that are going to be a waste of time, because there are so many out there now. And one of the things we've done in Generali particularly well over the last 12 months, we've actually launched our own internal innovation fund, where we've co-funded up to 60 ideas of completely new propositions who mostly partner with insurtechs and startups, to start bringing that in and to de-risk it a little bit for our businesses and to make it easier for them to take that gamble, if you will, on working with the ecosystem to see if they can come up with something better together, and they can share the value in an equitable way that still adds value to our business, adds value to our customers, and adds value to their business too. So it's very much work in progress, but we're making pretty good progress on it so far.
Great, thanks, Stephen.
Yeah, I can share my perspective too. Look, I agree. I'm gonna say, I think the needle is moving on the radar screen for sure. I think slowly, also thanks to the injection of new people from a different talent pool within the insurance industry, there is a growing humility and recognition and awareness that not everything can be built in-house. And I give you one anecdotal evidence, right? So in my job, which is working with clients like Generali, Zurich, whatever, to actually deliver value-added service of solutions, which is about transformation. If I go back 2 years ago, probably I would say 70-80% of the solutions that was bringing to the table were done just in-house by us. Today is the other way around. Today, the 70-80% of that is in with partners, and it could be the large, big, deep tech, or it could be the niche startup. And for me to do this, there is a bit of a cultural. There are some soft nuances that we need to consider. So first of all, it takes three to tango, which is the other way around to say win-win-win, right? So it's Swiss Re, it's the client, is the partner. We need to find the sweet spot that delivers value to everybody, but ultimately delivers value to the end policyholder. Number two is all about making sure that we let the right people meet up. Right? Look, if I have an engagement, say with Generali, I think for doing some of those stuff, I'd rather speak with someone like Stephen, who would probably speak the same language of mine or a similar language of mine, and the similar language of, I don't know, Désirée, who would be the startup that would bring along, rather than someone else who is very much entrenched in the old world and say, oh, I'm an actuary, I'm an underwriter, I know it all, I've been in this industry for 30 years, my firm is 190 years old, and so on and so forth, right? So meeting up with the right people. And thirdly is what we were saying like 2 minutes ago. Look, the vast majority of pilots are going to fail. Now, there's nothing wrong in failing, as long as we fail fast and we take the learnings into the next POC, right? But so we need to be a bit patient and realistic about it. And, there is value in failing as long as the learning from this failure can be then, capitalized on future stuff, and sooner or later, the sweet spot comes out. That's my point.
Thank you. So we've got a question that's we've spoken a bit about talent, we've spoken a bit about technology. So we've got a question that sort of cuts across both. So the question is, we all seem to agree that insurance industry needs to change to a more customer-centric approach. Additionally, we also seem to agree that technology is a key part of that shift that is needed, but the talent required is very scarce. So the question is, and this is sort of tech specific, have any of you tried a no-code platform? So i.e., so there's some examples here, platforms that allow you to build tailor-made customer-facing apps, whether it's broker portals, agent portals, etc., quite rapidly. So I'll share my perspective. So I don't want to name any names because I'm not affiliated with any of the firms, but I have tried quite a few local platforms, and I generally like them. I think there are specific use cases that you can apply to, and in fact, if you look at especially the US, some of the best funded insurtechs and fintechs happen to be in the no-code space. They're easy to learn, super flexible. However, having said that, I think it's really easy to sort of spend a lot of money on low-code platforms without really understanding what the use case is and where you're actually going to apply to. It's not the kind of the full answer, if you like, but I'm personally seeing an increasing adoption in the insurance industry around specific use cases. So, and Giuseppe, you're nodding, so maybe you can sort of share your perspective first.
Yeah. So look, talent and tech. So yes, I've tried and I've brought to clients a combination of platforms, right? Some of them customer facing, some of them not exactly customer facing, but certainly enabling a much better, more informed engagement with the customer. Look, just one anecdote. I've been working over the last 1 year or so with a couple of buddies within Swiss Re. Actually, they were both coming from the startup world. They had done their own startup and done the exit successfully, and they have developed a platform for engaging customers cross and upsell, right? So taking raw data from a portfolio of existing policyholders and then determine, leads, and have a platform to help the agents to engage those policyholders. It is just fantastic, and they did that in 50 days from scratch. It can be 50 days, which in this industry is like 5 seconds, right? It's super quick. So the key thing about tech when I go and have discussions with clients outside is, to make it fly, it should be plug and play. Because the reality is, at least in life and health, right? The reality is the layering of legacy systems is such that as soon as you open a conversation on tech and someone from IT comes to the plate, I mean, it's opening the Pandora box. So if you can deliver something simple, well-scoped, plug and play, that doesn't disrupt the existing stuff, you have a chance to make it fly. The second thing is about talent. Agree. So a couple of words of caution there. Agree. It's absolutely crucial to hire people in different talent pool now, and there is certainly a big appetite from people like data scientists, this type of capabilities. Now, let's be honest and candid about it. The reality is that the tier 1 people in this pool have so many nice offers from the big deep tech around the world, and for them insurance is probably a tier 3, tier 4 industry, right? So let's be honest about it, right? So the chance that the insurance industry taps the top people into that pool today, I don't see very much. The second, I think, is a lot about diversity and inclusion, even about the inclusion and diversity. So I think it is absolutely important for the insurance industry to tap into some of those people, bring them in, include them in the true sense, and then we're going to get the diversity. And through the diversity and inclusions, eventually we get better business outcomes, right? As a rule.
Any other perspectives from the group before we move?
Yeah, I just add a few comments to that. Look, we use Loco platforms, and it's great. It's fine in the business units, but it's not the silver bullet. There is no silver bullet when it comes to doing things quickly and efficiently. And I agree that covering up what we call our heritage systems and trying to link into them in a way that's more modular is always the best way to go. I just want to reflect on the talent piece, because it's something that's very close to my heart. We are constantly scouring Europe and beyond to get the talent, whether that's data scientists, as Giuseppe mentioned, or innovation managers. By the way, little plug here, we're looking for an innovation manager. If anyone wants to link in me later, that's well received, thank you. We're always looking for new talent, and it's hard to get that talent out there, partly because of what Giuseppe said, and that we're not tier 1 in terms of attractiveness, but also because there's a limited and a finite number of those people out there. It's a bit like the COVID vaccine, it's a little bit behind the demand at the moment, the supply. And so what we're doing in Generali, and our HR department has put a huge amount of effort into doing this, is actually starting to reskill large chunks of the organization to, for example, to have our own data scientist school, to have our own digital technology school. So we're actually finding that we have lots of great talent internally. We just haven't realized that they can be something different to what they originally were. And so we're making really good progress on that, but it is a constant battle. And it is something that we have to win at, because that's the core of our success.
Yeah, Désirée, go on.
Yeah, I want to say something about to find new and good talents. We are quite successful with our own social media story, and we are really into I'm really into network on LinkedIn and Xing and everything like that. And I think that's quite a good way to find new and good talents, because we are now in a position that talents comes to us because they see how good is our engagement also with our whole social media, digital story, the things that we bring it to the market, and that's I think that's a key to find these people. And so they really see, okay, you don't talk about things that you don't understand, or you tell you do that, you do digitally and stuff like that, because they really see it live, and that's, I think that will be the future.
Great, thank you. Next question is slightly broad, and I'm combining kind of 2 or 3 questions here with one of my sort of kind of original topics as well. So, I mean, insurance industry, we all know, has always been a push rather than a pull. So will this investment in customer experience, creating the concept of delightful experience, a better experience, lead to more engagement? So, I mean, if I take my own personal example, I've got 2 kids, a 9-year-old and 5-year-old, and they talk to me about growing up and owning bank accounts and cars and stuff, but then they've never said like, oh, if only I had more money, I can't wait to buy an insurance policy. So, do you think fundamentally the industry will move into a more of a pull with more engagement? So maybe Peter, you could kick us off.
I think, and maybe I'll give a sort of angle of what I see in the corporate world. I think what we're beginning to see now, which has sort of been accelerated through COVID, in my mind, is the sort of economic change in the companies who are growing, the companies who are being successful, and how we as consumers are therefore interacting with what we're purchasing. And if you just take, the large platforms, Désirée talked about platforms earlier, I think a lot of us now trade and buy through platforms. Going online, booking your holiday is a completely different experience to anything that we did even 10 years ago. And I think that's where we might start to see that different interaction around some insurance products coming through. And I certainly see that in the corporate space. So, where I was 5-10 years ago, traditionally working with large corporate companies who had heavy, they may have been in manufacturing, for example, heavy physical risks, tangible risks, the growth of intangible for corporates, but also us as individuals, I think is beginning to shift. I think there's a sort of a natural challenge for humans. No one really wants to think about risk. So at a consumer level, no one wakes up in the morning thinking, how can I protect myself before I leave the home today? Or if we lived in a world where you could leave your home, that would perhaps be something we'd think about. But I think, Giuseppe made the point earlier around the number of individuals in the world who also just aren't in the insurance system. So I think this is much about how we are buying and interacting as how we as insurance companies and providers can interact with individuals.
Giuseppe, I see you nodding.
Yeah, give it a swing. So my short answer would be yes, it is moving more into a pool, right? Second, I would say, however, the speed that we're going to see is going to vary across certainly markets and then lines of business, or sorry, retail, corporate. So my perspective within retail is that this is going to happen. It's already happening, right? I would see Asia markets very much on the front foot here, very much leading the way into this bit more of a pull approach. I think, again, staying within retail, the pull approach should be kind of composite across the lines, right? Which is something where the industry to date has failed, right? Because the reality is still it's very much by by line of business. Yeah. And lastly, I think, and again within retail, it also the speed of transition, right, depends also pretty much on the type of distribution mix that the player has. I think for the player with a tied agent distribution, take a Generali, again, it's a massive undertaking, but with a controlled sales force, selling internally the story, which I believe is a true one, to equip the agent to become the advisor of the future and have a better pool interaction with the policyholder, is probably a bit less difficult than operating in a completely, I don't know, IFA or bancassurance type of environment. Yeah.
Désirée, you got a perspective?
Yeah. So, Désirée or myself?
No, it's okay.
Oh.
Stephen, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So let me start by telling you that my two kids love Generali, but it may have something to do with me brainwashing them with lions and teddy bears. But no, I think there's a real challenge here in terms of how, and there's probably an evolution that's going to happen in terms of the merging of boundaries between what are strictly insurance products and what are manufactured products or entertainment or everything else. But I do think that what we've seen so far from our research is that customers, particularly in the pandemic, when they talk about their financial security or protecting what's most valuable to them, or looking at their investments, for example, for the future, they want to know that they're in good hands. And what we're trying to do with our lifetime partner strategy is actually to say, right, we're here for you, not just here for the basics. We're here for whatever it is that you need. That's a journey. So you start with, obviously, with products that start to cross the border lines between insurance and, say, car products. So some of those joint products, and then to say, actually, how do we then just help you fulfill all the needs you have in your financial world as a customer? Now, that's something that everybody wants to do. It's something that everyone's been talking about for the last 20 years. It's been very difficult to do. I mean, other than Amazon, probably, that's managed to grab all the retail space, nobody else has really done that properly. So it is still work in progress, but there's a lot we can do there. And I think it is true that is going to change further, and we need to be at the heart of that to win. Sorry, Désirée.
No worries. I think it will be also changed that we're talking about a lot of customer experience, but I think it's all about the product experience, because that's also a topic that we have to go deeper into it, because often on the insurance perspective, you build a product and you think, oh, that's quite good for the customers, or that's the new thing that the market needs, because you have also this inside perspective from your view, and also like the financial view and the risk view. But if you go to the real perspective from the customer, what product he really needs, then you see there is a big gap. And if you talk about customer experience and UX matters and all stuff like that, you also have to think about the product experience, and think that's a topic that we have to bring it on the next years.
Thank you. So we've got a question here around comparison of Europe with sort of Asia and Far East. So the question is it unrealistic to expect Europe to be as digitized as Asia? So say Penang, for example. And if so, should innovation be more focused on service and value rather than customer interaction channel? So I'll again share my perspectives and open it to the group. I mean, having spent time with Penang, it's both fascinating and scary, I would say, just in terms of scale of, I think, combined, they're probably bigger than AXA and AIG combined, just to sort of give you an indication of scale. Something like 32,000 staff on R&D, the amount of AI. So a lot of it is, extreme, capability, but equally, there is structural stuff in China that I think you can do those sort of things. They have complete control over the traffic system, for example, as just that's why they're able to pay claims within 96% of the claims within 5 minutes. So and they don't have to worry about GDPR and all the sort of stuff we need to deal with. So there's some structural stuff, I think, why they're able to, apart from obviously being extremely forward thinking. Keen to kind of get your perspectives. Stephen, maybe given kind of Generali's presence, I'm sure you've got a view.
Yeah, well, so look, I think building on what you said, Ping Ang's a great success. I respect them hugely, and they've done fantastically well over a very short period of time. But there are some very big differences between China and Europe. Firstly, China is one market. We are many markets, even though we say we are one. Secondly, China says and you do. That's not the case in Europe. In Europe, we like to rebel. We like to say this is my right to do it differently. We like to have the opportunity to object. And so actually we can't enforce things on people. And thirdly, they have a huge captive market. It's like, 1.5, 1.4 billion people in one market, all homogenous. So that gives them huge scale advantages, and they can do things that we could never dream of doing. Having said that, I do think they have shown us the way in some areas. So particularly around ecosystems, for example, how you build those partnerships. That will take a long time to come to Europe. I don't think we'll ever get the same level of integration that they've managed to achieve. But I do think that the examples they've given of how you can do things quicker, faster, cheaper, better, I think will apply. And if we look at Asia as a whole, there are some big differences between Asia and Europe in terms of even the providers themselves. And if you look at how long they've been around and how much heritage and legacy they've got, it's a very different matter between the two continents. So I think there will be some big differences. And I think that doesn't mean, though, that Europe doesn't need to quickly invest more in terms of delivering that service, delivering that experience, because we can't just say China is different for the next 20 years. That's not going to wash.
I think the other, the other thing that springs to mind is regulation as well. And that's not to say that there's inherent failure built in other regions in the world, but I think in Europe particularly, there's we've got a really clear line of sight that we want our financial markets to be stable, and arguably that does bring certain restrictions perhaps in the speed of how you want to develop, but equally, look, I think we don't all need to be going after every single innovation and customer all at the same time. There's plenty of opportunity here, and I think what you might start to see is a continuation of different companies working in partnerships that we were talking about earlier, focusing on small scale, and that doesn't hit the headlines as much, right? Something like a Ping An with the size of the Chinese population, or Amazon and its global nature. I guess that we see that, whereas it's more difficult to see some of the innovation that actually is going on across Europe right now.
So I can give it a swing. I agree with all what's said. So look, for me, if I think about Europe, I would think of an innovation very much localized, because the reality of the regulatory framework, distribution setup, and product specificities is pretty different, right? I would see innovation along basically three main pillars, right? And one is the products, the second is the services, the ancillary services associated to those products, and the third one is the relationship, the engagement with the customer along, the insurance journey and along the life cycle, right? And again, forget about things that Ping An can do with, 1.5 million agents and I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people of staff. I mean, with, basically starting from scratch, no legacy, it's not a benchmark. The legacy in Europe will always be there. I still think, though, that some of the carriers in Europe can focus on doing simple stuff, right? Simple things, which do not necessarily require, huge investment in technology. but that still yield value. And let's just go back to the basic. I mean, if I'm a new insurance customer and I apply for a protection policy, I just want to make sure that if it's I'm healthy, it's a simple product, low sum assured. I mean, please don't waste my time. Just do it quickly. And the day after I've done the policy, please make sure that I can be onboarded on a portal. Everybody is a portal. And the day after, please do send me a nice welcome letter. And a year later, please do send me another renewal letter saying, oh, we're so happy you've been with us. And a year later, you maybe set up through the advisor a 30 minutes conversation that we go through my needs analysis, and maybe there is an opportunity to sell another product, right? Doing all of that does not require huge investments in technology. It's just the basics. Just let's make sure we get the basics right. And if you need some tech investment, I tell you what, there is in the world outside, there are plenty of opportunities to piggyback on something that has already been done and tested elsewhere and doesn't need to be developed in-house with a time frame of years. I mean, just make it simple and pragmatic.
Cool, thank you. We probably have time for one more question. Peter, maybe you can kick us off on this. So this is around when you're thinking about customer experience and transformation, how involved have the brokers and other customer types have been in sort of kind of creating this vision. And in fact, I'll expand that question slightly to saying, I think the concept of customer itself has evolved, right? So not just thinking about consumers in this connected world of ecosystems. So yeah, so over to you, Peter.
So I think there's one thing we need to just get straight, right? And there's too much discussion sometimes around who is the customer. There is always an end customer. It's an insurance product. There is always an end customer. So everything we're doing should always be about that performance of that product. But I think actually what is now beginning to come through is there's customers, there's different value chains, there are brokers for different segments of the market. There's different opportunities to improve the experience. And actually making sure in each of our companies that we are looking at the full breadth of the customer journey is important. Sometimes, we tend towards the big shiny projects. Actually, sometimes just changing and modifying some very simple processes to make them quick behind the scenes can deliver a completely different experience to the end customer. And I think, as a quick answer, that to me would be focus on that end customer and what really makes a difference. Don't just think about huge innovation.
Désirée?
So I think also I agree totally with the thing that Peter has said. I mean, it's always important to know who is in the end the customer, B2C, B2B, 2C. And you always have to have in your mind that you are not your customer. So I think that's something that I always pretend on my head in every project and everything that we turn into the market, and also to bring our journey better into the market. I always think about that. And for me, it's like also the habits and the return of the meaning of the brokers and the other sales channels. For me, it's quite important that we have to bring these all patterns more together to one, because in the sense everyone is your customer, and you have to bring the perfect journey from them, and you have also the customer journey and the transition of the broker channel. It's quite important, and you have to bring that on your products.
Thank you, Désirée. I think we're just about on time. So thank you everyone for joining, and thank you to all the panelists, Désirée, Peter, Stephen, and Giuseppe, for taking time. I hope you found the discussion valuable. Apologies, we can get through all the questions. There's a few more questions that came in, but try to get through as many as we could. So yeah, thanks for joining again, and take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Stay safe.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.